The Great Siege of Malta was undoubtedly one of the most significant events in Malta's history. Few other historic episodes rival it for sheer heroism. A small but strategically important island country has, through its turbulent history, played a vital role in the struggles of a succession of powers for domination of the Mediterranean. The Great Siege reminds of thousands of Maltese islanders, men-at-arms to the Knights of St. John, who were defending their country and fighting for their lives against the Ottoman Empire. The story was interwoven with the tale of two adversaries. The Barbary corsair Dragou Reis commanded the Ottoman fleet, and the Grand Master Jean de la Valette, who defended the island. This was a battle of cross against the crescent. 40,000 Ottoman soldiers lay siege to the island, protected by around 8,000 Maltese troops. The battle was fought on land and at sea. Fort St. Elmo was seized. The Turks attacked Fort St. Angelo. It was the battle which saw some of the bloodiest episodes of this holy war. But the fortress was not surrendered, thanks to heroism of the Knights and the Maltese. The Great Siege ended on 8th September of 1565.
I think it is one of the most amazing events in world history. Incredible acts of courage and endurance, and it provides a lot of imagery for music cycles.
So we just heard the world premiere of The Great Siege, a piece by Alexei SHOR, performed by the joint Malta and Armenian State Symphony Orchestras, conducted by Sergei Sambatyan.
For me, it was a huge responsibility and honor. Of course, it was risky to come here and to do this project, but after the concert, I think that was a fantastic experience for my friends. This is one of the most important things, how you create energy, how you can express the energy and how you can exchange it in the concert hall.
I couldn't have dreamed of a better premiere. It's a great honor and privilege that it's happening.
Well, I'm delighted to be here in Malta, and this is a true paradise on this planet.
It's my first time in Malta, and I'm having a wonderful time. A wonderful atmosphere, wonderful natural surrounding.
First time Malta, first time this orchestra, first time Sergei, first time this piece by Alexei, everything first time.
First day when I saw Alexei SHOR here in Malta, I immediately grabbed him and said, Mr. SHOR, could you please have some time to listen to me? play through your pieces. So of course he was very gracious and agreed to do so. We went ahead and met the following day and went through the pieces. I had some ideas and he also had some ideas. We went then to rehearsal together and kind of collaborated. I mean, it's all a part of this collaboration.
In that case, when you have a living composer, of course, it's a big luxury to be able to actually ask the questions you often have to guess with the score of Mozart or Brahms.
Of course, I would say 95% of the work is done when he's at home writing, but there's a small segment of it which is done live. I mean, you cannot discount that, which is why it's important for the composer to be there, to offer suggestions, sometimes even change notes right there in the rehearsal. It's a work in progress, it's testing. You know, it's like testing a rocket when you're about to launch into space. These sorts of things are important to have the original engineer, so to speak, the creator, to be there.
Getting to know the composer is one of the greatest privileges, because if the composition is fantastic, it will survive throughout the centuries. But then in 100 years, people cannot claim that they met the composer. So I'm the lucky one that I could meet the composer and actually discuss with him a few things.
I think it's very important for us, for classical musicians, in nowadays to sort of look back and look forward at the same time. I think this is the only way we can move the world of classical music into fully bloomed 21st century, when we do collaborations with our contemporary composers, with our classics, and you need to educate the public. But I can give you an interesting example. When I brought my children to the classical concert, they're really, they took a little bit of piano, but they're not musicians. They responded best to the 21st century pieces rather than to the classics. I was surprised myself. So I think that this new young generation, if educated properly, will be responding as well to the contemporary music, to the modern music, as well as to the classics.
Commissioning new works is part of the mission of every living instrumentalist, because the music goes forward and the curiosity grows together with the music. New compositions are an integral part of every performer today.
You have to approach modern music like you approach Beethoven or Mozart. If somebody plays badly modern music, the audience thinks bad music. If you play bad Mozart or Beethoven, the audience understands that you're playing bad. So it's important to play very well the modern music.
To a large degree, the start of my musical career is due to David Carpenter, who was a friend of mine before.
He was always never sharing any of his works or theory in music as well, until I guess we kind of inspired him to say, go for it.
And just by accident, he saw some music lying on the table, and he picked it up and looked at it, and he was like, oh, what is this? I kind of like it, I want to play this, and it all went from there.
The genius behind Alexei's music is kind of you're bringing back tonality. When you think of the modern composer of today, you think of very atonal music. It's almost very mathematical. It's not going to be sonorous or tonal. And then you have Alexei, who is actually bringing back this concept of melody, typically seen in the 18th and 19th century, is something that's almost shunned away from, in today's time.
It's just that's the music that I like, and that's the kind of music that really touches my heart, and that's the kind of music I'm trying to write. It's not to say that I don't like other kinds of music, but I'm not connecting with it emotionally as much as I do with the music of 18th and 19th century. So it's much more natural for me to write in the neoclassical style.
This is like a nostalgic way, a way that Medner and Rachmaninoff used to compose, which was also a little old-fashioned for their style. And Alexei SHOR tries to unveil the undiscovered gems, and his heart-wrenching melodies are really going close to the audience, close to the audience heart.
Alexei is definitely the champion of the viola as a solo instrument, and really composing for his works and really pushing the limits of what the viola can do. This is the first time in history that people are actually taking viola works with orchestra and transcribing it for violin and piano and cello, which never happened before.
It's hard for me to know why things developed historically the way they developed, but I think they developed unfairly to viola, because it's a beautiful instrument. It has a range similar to the human voice. I felt it deserves to be a solo instrument. I spent my whole life working as a mathematician, 15 hours a day since I was 10 years old. I only started taking music seriously about 6 years ago, so I'm completely self-taught. I was born in Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine, but back then it was part of Soviet Union. I lived there until I was about 15 years old when Chernobyl blew up. And when Chernobyl blew up, I escaped from Kiev and spent a few years in college in Moscow. And then Soviet Union started collapsing, and then me and my family escaped Soviet Union, and then there was a tumultuous travel and immigration history. I ended up in the United States. My parents were in Israel and Canada for a while. Eventually we reunited. It's a very long story that's sort of typical of Soviet families of that time. As a kid, I was mostly interested in mathematics and other sciences. The music happened almost by accident about 5-6 years ago. But when my music started getting popular, that's when I thought that I have to take that chance and see where that goes.
a great piece of music with lots of variety, very interesting, following the traditions of romantic composers like Liszt and Albéniz, you know, making this music notes on places they have been to, and I think it's wonderful that Alexei, being a composer of 21st century, is following that tradition, and I'm quite proud to be participating in this project.
He's a Maltese composer now because I understand that he's a Maltese citizen, and his music is characterized by tremendous sincerity. He is emoting through his music, his feelings, which is very nice because it's very picturesque and programmatic.
Well, I think that music for me is about, let's say, the vibe it gives, the feelings that it gives to you. I mean, it should be a natural kind of process, a cycle. There should be an evolution of emotions and feelings which happen throughout well, the piece. And so harmonies, in my mind, are a natural process of such a creation.
Something that's going to change in our perception of what is the role of performers. At some point, especially in the second part of the 20th century, the cult of the performer hurt the music, the contemporary music, because there were many performers who would only perform music of the dead composers, so to speak. But there are some performers who are very courageous, and they stick to their guns, and they promote the music of composers who they believe in. For those performers, I have tremendous admiration.
It's extremely important for the world to know that today that what we call classical music is not dead. There's a lot of people with talent, like Alexei, and they are creating, they're looking for new things, they're looking for their public, and they want to be heard.
I think the phenomenon of the 21st century, with the advent of YouTube and all of these things that, basically listening to classical music or any kind of music for free, it's a great tool for people to become more knowledgeable.
It gives the chance to people to listen to music, to so many more millions, and what can be more joyful experience. Let there be even more music on the internet, let the internet be filled with music, because music is an integral part of our existence.
It's very difficult to say what's a good composition, because as we know, many great compositions were failures when they first began. For instance, Bizet's great opera, Carmen, which is probably the most popular opera in the world, was a disaster at the first performance. He was booed off the stage. When Rachmaninoff wrote his first piano concerto, he went into a Great Depression because everybody hated it. It's hard to say what becomes a success and what draws success to a particular piece. There's a lot of things that are taken into consideration. There's a lot of things that one must think about, and we don't know in advance what's going to be a hit.
Doing mathematics all my life, it teaches you to be very careful and pay attention to small details, because in mathematics A tiny mistake makes the whole thing completely worthless.
I know Alexei SHOR's music for 2 years already, and I find a lot of similarities between his way of composing and composing of Bach. And it's also not a secret that Bach is his beloved composer, and I can see that he is really inspired from the music of Bach.
When you're sitting there and playing a prelude and fugue of Bach, when you're sitting there and studying a Chopin etude, or you're playing a Chopin ballade, you have a one-on-one relationship with the genius. And how often does that happen in life? How often does that happen in everyone's life?
Lev Tolstoy once was asked, what's genius? He said, everyone can write one beautiful letter. A good writer will write one good book. A genius? It's like a mule. Just keeps on going, no matter what, and keeps on working and keeps on producing. Then, at the end of his life, or maybe after he's gone, somebody could look back at the body of his work and say, ah, that was a genius.